Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we inflict our favorite movies on our friends, watch our friendships crumble into the dust. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
And if you're interested, you can find us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. So, welcome to another March blind spot episode where we watch movies none of us have seen before, which is a little bit different, but it actually has ended up being a really fun thing to do because we've been watching them virtually together and it's been good. It's forced me to watch it on a more of a better schedule than waiting until the very last moment. So I think we should do this some more if we can, if possible. But this week we watched an Austin pick. And I sang it with less dread than usual. So that's a good sign. So Austin, yeah. What did we watch?
So we watched an old classic that has been one of my biggest blind spots, I think. I always hear references to it. Love Judy Garland, but hadn't seen this. So we watched Meet Me in St. Louis from 1944. I didn't know. Well, actually, I knew more than I thought I did. I thought I knew nothing, but I'll wait till I read my summary guess, but I think I did better than I expected to. What about you guys? Did you know anything about it going in?
I said it before, the only reference I'd ever heard to this movie, God, this is shameful, but 'twas in the Sex and the City movie when her assistant is from St. Louis and they talk about the movie and then she tries to watch it but turns it off halfway through because it's too depressing on New Year's Eve. So that's it. That is really that's the only time I even knew this was a movie. Like, I've never heard of it except for that.
Yeah, I also have seen the Sex and the City movie, so I know exactly what Jackie is referring to, sadly. But yeah, I'd kind of heard of it. I'd seen it kind of pop up in a bunch of different lists of things, like classic Hollywood movies. So I kind of had vague ideas of it in its existence, but I didn't actually know it. Once we started watching it, I was like, oh, this is not what I had guessed it was. This isn't really what I thought it was. But in my defense, I don't think I would have guessed this movie into existence.
That's fair. So what was your summary guess, you guys?
So for me, I think it's a Christmas movie because I remember seeing it pop up on Christmas lists and things, although Christmas only happens at the very end. But the plot guess that I had was that it was about a young woman played by Judy Garland who either works as a nanny or a caregiver to young children in some way, and that she's being forced to move for work, like the family that she works for is moving to St. Louis from New York, and that she's having to leave behind her love interest in New York, and then she's kind of like, oh, meet me in St. Louis, or whatever, and then gets to St. Louis and finds someone new, and then has to, like, choose between the two loves.
Okay.
I absolutely loved your, like, newspaper lady from the 40s voice.
Yeah, that was my old-timey voice.
Awesome.
So I think clearly, like, I don't know, all I had right was that there are children in this movie and that there's some sort of move between St. Louis and New York, even though I had it completely backwards.
But still fairly apt. Like, there was a big subplot about moving. So that's very much better than I got, I think. My summary, so like I had mentioned to Jen and Austin earlier that I saw one line when I was going to rent this movie and it just said, following the emotional trauma or something along those lines. So I immediately texted Austin. I was like, is this the movie I'm supposed to be watching? Because I thought this was lighthearted. So she said, yeah. She said, just watch it. So I wrote some kind of emotional trauma. And then I wrote, a family in St. Louis faces obstacles. There are many daughters in a family looking for husbands. Old movies are always about marrying off daughters. And then I wrote, maybe there's a gold rush?
I mean, aside from the gold rush, you were bang on.
Sad though, right? Like, you can make a generic statement about movies in the olden times, and they're always about getting some lady married.
So I think between the three of us, we kind of nailed it. I think I like unlocked some hidden memory that I didn't know that I had, because when it came to actually writing a summary, it kind of nailed it, sort of. Not quite, but I wrote, I think this is about a young Judy Garland who loves St. Louis, but whose family is moving away from there, and she's sad about it until she falls in love. So, yeah, I unlocked something. But,
Yeah, I think if we combined our 3 synopses, like, we have it.
yeah. So it's basically like a year in the life type thing of a family, the Smith family. There's, 4 daughters and a brother. 4 daughters and a son, I should say. And it's really just a year in the life. There's not a whole lot of plot. It kind of takes you through the seasons. Judy Garland's character is named Esther. She falls in love with the boy next door, and then they're trying to marry off her older sister Rose, and she's kind of unlucky in love, kind of, sort of. And then, she's 18. She's not getting any younger. And then I guess kind of the main conflict is that the father gets a job in New York, and they're all going to have to leave St. Louis, and they all love St. Louis. It's coming up on the Louisiana Purchase Exposition. Is that right? So they're like, yes, they're all excited for the fairgrounds, and like St. Louis is getting all built up, and they're all excited for that. It's basically just like a love letter to St. Louis.
So strangely, like, why that city?
So I guess this is based on a book. I
Okay.
didn't do too much deep diving in this, which I probably should have. I'm pretty sure it was based on a book or a series of books by an author who was essentially Agnes, the second youngest daughter in the movie. So it's basically like her family life. And then I guess like she was around on set to like get the details of the house. So it's like pretty historically accurate in terms of like her life. So that's cool.
That is pretty cool. I didn't realize it was autobiographical. I also was wondering where they came up with this idea and what they were trying to convey in this movie, because I didn't see any kind of real point.
Yeah.
And even the conflicts were very secondary to just like the day-to-day routine. So it's kind of an interesting perspective to say it's someone's life. That makes more sense.
Yeah, I did make a list. I started trying to keep a list of all the conflicts that are in this movie.
Conflicts.
Yes, I
did
used the term very
have a similar like thought process when we were watching it, because I kept being like, there's no like real plot to this movie. We're just kind of watching little vignettes of this family. And then even the central conflict we keep referring to, the dad moving to New York or whatever, that's kind of only happens halfway through the movie. He's like, I got a job in New York, and then we're moving. And then it's kind of not really discussed again until the very end, where he's like, guess what? We're not moving.
Yeah,
right?
It's
conflict
over halfway. It's over halfway through, because that's like when we were watching it, I was like, oh, I guess I was wrong. I guess I was thinking of some other movie where they had to like move away, and then there were like maybe 45 minutes left, and he announces that they're moving. I'm like, oh, okay. So
and
it's very late in the game to introduce the primary conflict, but
and there's never any struggle. Like it doesn't require any like growth or change or hardship to overcome this quote unquote obstacle. It's just like, yeah, you're right, I changed my mind. I know we packed up our entire house and literally have everything in boxes and are walking out the door, but I changed my mind. Yeah, because it's a movie.
Also, like, maybe this gets into our why are they all so obsessed with St. Louis thing, but I'm like, they're very anti this move to New York, which in my opinion didn't sound like a terrible thing. Like, yeah, you're little kids, so you're sad you're gonna have to leave your house, like that's very scary, but like it's a big job for the dad. Like, it's a big deal. They're gonna be making a lot of money. They already have a lot of money, but they keep acting like we're gonna be so poor in New York living in an apartment building. You're in a mansion right now. Like, your family is richer, will be richer. Like, you'll have a nice place in New York. The like brother is going to school out east. The oldest daughter, her fiance's in New York. Like, it makes perfect sense for this family to go there.
Can we talk about that house though?
That house is beautiful.
Every time they opened that like swinging screen front door, like I every time they opened it, I'm like, I want that. That is like the perfect weather and the perfect door. Like springtime, just swinging on in. Whew. It was a beautiful movie.
Yes,
I will say that right off the bat, regardless of any discussion of plot or characters, like, it is fun to look at.
Yes.
It is weird though. It is straight up weird. We have like a spectrum now of the weirdness of the movies that Austin makes us watch. Like Pennies from Heaven is like an explosion of psychedelics, and You know, some of the other movies fall somewhere on the spectrum, but this one is perfectly like in the middle. It was so non-offensive, and it was pretty, and it was like soft and frilly. It was just really fun to look at. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
You're right. Like, it's like this big, beautiful house. Everyone's in these like big, beautiful, like period costumes because it's set in like 1903, and it's just lots of like pretty things and people dancing and singing, and there's, like we said, there's no real plot or conflict. There's not like a care in the world for most of these people. It's just like, look at this lush production design. Look how nice my costumes are.
Yes.
Lush is a perfect word for it. Very lush. And it also falls into the category. Okay, so this was just, I heard it on another podcast, but the concept of like cottagecore is a thing, and maximalism and cluttercore, all these terms people have made up for like clutter and enjoying a cluttered look. That's more my style. So this house was amazing. Every surface had something on it. I can't stand a blank wall. Every wall in this house had a painting, had a decoration. Like, I felt very at home in this concept of the world, and I wanted it. I'm like, give me this house. Gimme right now.
Yeah. That's so yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about before with the author of the book. So her name's Sally Benson, and she, I guess, she really helped like Vincent Minnelli, the director, really set the scene. And so I'm in terms of like the way the house was decorated and stuff, apparently a lot of that came from her. So I guess you and her would get along great. Similar interior design.
I'm assuming she's long dead.
I would imagine so.
Okay. Well, R.I.P. Sally. Maybe I'm the reincarnated spirit of Sally Benson. But I really love it. Like, I really hate modern design and just large white spaces. I don't know if you guys have ever seen pictures of Kim Kardashian's house.
Oh my God, I hate it.
It is my nightmare.
It looks like
uninviting and
a modern art museum without the art.
It's awful.
Yeah, and no furniture. Anyway.
So how do we want to do this? What do we want to talk about?
I mean, I guess we can go through characters because, as discussed, there's no plot.
Yeah, I was confused off the top. I was like, how many people are in this family? Who are
they
all
all
these people?
Look very similar.
It looks like a real family.
Yeah, that's great in reality's sake. Like, I appreciate attention to detail, but for the longest time, I couldn't tell who was the maid and who was the mom.
Yeah.
And then I could tell there were 2 older daughters and 2 younger daughters. But I know Austin's not going to like this, but I couldn't tell the 2 older ones apart. Like, I have no connection to Judy Garland. So it took me a while to realize that she was the one with the really, really terrible eyebrows.
You said that on Wizard of Oz too. It's so funny.
I hate them so much. Like, they make her look ugly, and she is not by any stretch of the imagination ugly.
She felt so beautiful in this movie. I will say, like, I was reading a lot about because we talked a little bit about it on our Wizard of Oz episode, but like, she was really abused by the studio system. She was addicted to drugs since she was basically 14. And so she was 22, I believe, in this movie, and she said this is the first time that she felt like an adult and like beautiful, basically, because it was I think she was hesitant to take the role because she was tired of always being like the girl next door, kind of, quote unquote. Like, she was always playing younger characters, and like, she was an adult at this time. She'd already been married, she'd already been divorced, and she was tired of being seen as this like young child. And Vincent Minnelli, I guess, eventually convinced her to take the role, and he really worked with her. And like, and I was watching an interview with Liza Minnelli, their daughter, and she was talking about how just the way Judy Garland is framed in this movie, and I didn't really notice it before, but she's always like framed so beautifully, like sometimes in the window or in like, just, I don't know, just the framing of her is beautiful. And so I just think she worked really closely with like the makeup artist, and then I guess they worked together a lot over the course of her career and stuff. So I like the fact that like this is like the first time that she was in a role where she felt like a grown-up and she felt beautiful.
I will say that she immediately won me over, heart and soul, in this movie.
Yeah, let's talk about Esther. She's the best.
Esther's fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
She seems way ahead of her time with her, like, sassy comebacks, and she's got no fear. She's great. I just really like that nothing phases her. She's, like, full steam ahead all the time. She trusts her gut, and she goes for it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I know we talked about how there wasn't a lot of conflict in this movie and there wasn't a lot of like need for growth or change, But in the case of Esther, like, I liked that she just knew what she wanted and went after it, and there wasn't like a whole, you need to learn a lesson. She was just like, no, like, this is what's important to me, this is what I want, and this is what I'm gonna get. And I was like, I support this, Esther. Go for it. Make this shit happen.
Yeah, get that boyfriend.
Right? And on top of that, she wasn't only focused on getting a man. Like, she was a really good sister.
Yeah.
She was a really good granddaughter and daughter. Like, she really took care of Tootie, whatever name that is, and Agnes. Like, and yeah, I noticed too, right when, so Rose was waiting for this call from her boyfriend from New York, and they were trying to give her some privacy, and it didn't work out. And in the end, the conversation went really badly. And everyone at the table is sitting there in silence, like, oh God, what do we say? And then Esther jumps in and she's like, I bet no one else has had a man call from New York just to talk. And then it like breaks the ice, and she totally like changes the tone of the whole dinner, and everybody kind of relaxes. And I'm just like, that's just a good sister. Just finding a way to make things okay for her sister. So it was a cool move. I like Esther.
Yeah. And that's a good point, too. Like, at the very beginning, Esther was the one trying to orchestrate it so that they had the early dinner, so her sister had privacy for the call. Like, she was more invested in it than Rose was, to an extent. Being like, I'm going to make this happen for you. You're going to get engaged tonight, and you're going to have privacy, and everything's going to go great. And then when it didn't, she was the one, like you said, to break the ice and the tension. And, like, she did, like, care a lot about her family. Like, even at the end when, the boy finally was like, okay, yeah, I'm finally caught up to you. I love you. Let's get married. And she was like, okay, but I still have to go to New York with my family because I'm not leaving my family. So thanks. Like, this is great, but I have other things going on too. And he's like, wait, what? What? Just tell me what I need to do.
And when she thinks, so at one point it's Halloween, Tootie gets hurt. The wires get crossed, and it's implied by Tootie that the boy next door is the one that hurt her. And she like fully 100% believes Tootie. She's on Tootie's side. She goes and beats up the boy who she loves next door. Like, she doesn't even hesitate to be like, are you sure? Like, maybe he didn't mean it. She's like, this is what my sister says. I believe her over everything else. No other consideration matters. And you don't even see that in modern movies.
I also appreciated that then on the flip side of that is when the story's like clarified and she realizes that that's not really what happened. She goes over to apologize and like, whatever. It's like a weird, awkward 1940s conversation where nothing is really said, but like she like goes over and is like, I fucked up. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, I think I could kind of, in my head as the scene was playing out, I was expecting all the different ways it was going to happen like a modern movie would. Like Jackie was saying, like, she wouldn't believe Tootie and that it would put her against the family. Or after she attacks the guy in defense of Tootie, like, they don't clear the air, and now there's all this, like, unspoken misunderstanding stuff, and that's where all the conflict was going to be. But none of that really happens. She kind of is just like, I'm sorry, he did what? I'm going to go fight him. And then she's like, oh, he didn't do that? Okay. I'm going to go back and kind of sheepishly tell him I'm sorry, and we're going to have some flirty banter for a bit.
Exactly. It's like one of those situations in movies or TV shows where everything could be solved by having a simple conversation. They actually had the conversation.
Right. Yeah. I loved it. It's so refreshing. It's like, just common sense. Love to see it.
Maybe that's why this movie had no plot or conflict, because they all just kept communicating with one another.
Right? I mean, it was way more relaxing just to be like, yes.
I guess one other thing that Judy Garland said was that one of the other reasons that she was hesitant to take the role is because it's like, she felt like, kind of like what we're saying, that there wasn't really anything, like she didn't want to be childish, and she felt like the character was childish. And so it kind of took Vincent Minnelli to be like, you just have to really believe everything that she said. Like, it's very sincere. And I feel like that sincerity really kind of came across, and like, because it could have just been very bland and been like, this, nothing's happening. Like, this is boring. This is too sweet. But there was enough of an edge to her that it was, you could tell that she was genuine, but she still had that like comedic kick to it. And it was like a really good mix, I thought.
Yeah, like, just to give an example, the scene where the neighbor boy's over for the first time and she asks him to like help her turn out the lights, and they're kind of going through the house real sexy. And then he kind of is like, well, good night, and leaves, and it's just her standing on the stairs. And I could definitely see another actress playing it differently, but she plays it in such a very sincere, like, are you fucking kidding me? I was trying to get laid, kind of just like moment with just a look. And I was like, I love that reaction from like someone in this time that they're just like genuinely like, what is this guy's problem? Like, come on.
It's all on the side of her shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just kind of has that like defiant slump. Like, really, all that work for nothing?
Yeah.
She is good.
She turns the lights back on on the stairwell. I like that.
John Truitt, he is my favorite term for this type of dude, is a sack of cement. He's nothing. He's nothing. He's so lucky that Esther has decided that he's the one for her because he doesn't do anything to advance his case. He's not interesting. He's not funny. Like, he really is kind of what a 1940s man is, I guess, who's just, you should be a husband and provide for me, and the rest doesn't really matter.
He's there and he's handsome enough, I guess, but for, I guess, maybe the time. It's weird because when they did the apology scene where she goes over to him and they kind of have banter for a bit, I was like, oh, now he's like joking with her. Maybe now he's loosening up and we're going to see more of his personality come through. But then he just went back to being a cement block. And I was like, does he not, he made a joke one time 10 minutes ago. Like, what happened?
I think it's also just like the movie's about him, I guess, in the sense that like it is about that romance, but it's not really. Like the movie's about the family and Esther's relationship with the family, and he's just kind of bonus, which I appreciated because I'd rather that than a sappy romance.
No, I just wanted him to have a bit more of a personality so that we could understand why Esther was so gung-ho.
Totally fair.
For someone like her, like, I get that she was really into him and really focused on him, but then there's scenes of her hanging out with her friends, and there's dozens of guys around. I'm like, how does someone like Esther not be like, okay, let me go through my options? Like, who else?
It's true.
Yeah, and this movie, too, doesn't really give the guy playing John Truitt, I don't know his name, any opportunities to show personality. Like, the times when they develop his character, they're talking about things he did off screen. Like, he saved Tootie and Agnes from getting in trouble for their Halloween prank. But they don't show that happening or how he acts heroic and helps them. They just be like, oh, by the way, he acted heroic and helped them. So it doesn't come across as a part of his personality. So he is nothing. He barely has any lines either.
I liked it right at the beginning when her and Rose are like checking him out from the porch. Subtly, not so subtly. Just another.
Yeah. It's very like, sisterly. I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You do that with your sisters. Ugh. Not quite so subtly.
I felt personally offended that the whole like inciting incident was dinner being served at 5:30 and everyone was offended by how ridiculously early that was. And I'm like, oh, I eat dinner at 5:00. I am a 70-year-old woman.
I didn't like the way the dad rolled in like a huge dick immediately, because I get that that's kind of how it was. I mean, we can assume. None of us, thank God, lived through that time. But sure, the dad's the head of the household and he gets his dinner, whatever. But if they're trying to sell us on this really tight family unit, it didn't come across. I was like, oh, the dad is the obstacle because he's a huge jerk and no one likes him and he's really set in his ways. And I thought that was going to be the thing. He'd be like, no, Esther, no, Rose, you can't marry these guys. I control my household with an iron fist. You have to get around me to get what you want. So it kind of, to me, set it up in a different way than what I was expecting, which is fine because fairly early after that, you see that they kind of humor him and still kind of do what they want.
Yeah.
And he's more of a figurehead than anything else. But
yeah, I kind of like it's the women that control this house, which is kind of fun.
I loved, sorry.
I was going to say that's actually so true because the son, Lon Jr., barely exists in this movie. At one point when they're having dinner, we were all like, who's that guy?
It's true.
He's the brother. He's supposed to be a main character. So yeah, the men are very secondary in this family.
Yeah, I like the way they kind of show that after Tootie is injured and she's like telling the long story to the dad once he gets home of like, oh, I was hurt because I was doing this prank on the trolley and then I got dragged into a blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, I'm sorry, what? And then the mom is like, oh no, she just fell. Don't worry about it.
I actually could, okay, since we're talking about Tootie and that incident, like, what happened? I'm still not totally clear on what happened.
They did not explain that very well. But sorry, Jen, you go ahead.
No, I think her and Agnes put a dummy on the trolley tracks in the attempt to derail the trolley and murder everyone in St. Louis. Because they are teeny little psychopaths, which, you know, great. Love it. On board. And then the conductor, I think, saw and was going to go after them, but then John Truitt, like, grabbed them and hid them somewhere. And somehow in the course of that, Tootie fell and got injured.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I got too. Like, Rose says, what were you trying to do? You could have killed dozens of people. And they're just like, oh, well. But yeah, what they expected was the trolley to derail. But the guy stopped it in time. And yeah, he came out and chased them. And John Truitt hid them down an alley.
Okay.
And I think she fell in the alley and hit glass. But I don't know why I'm thinking that. But I don't know why.
Then she gets home and says, John Truitt tried to kill me. Which, I mean, it's totally understandable why Esther thinks this is true and then goes to fight him. Like, her injured sister is like wailing and saying this man assaulted her. But then Tootie was like, oh no, I was just making that up because I'm a psychopath.
She is such a psychopath.
It really threw me, though, that for the while on Halloween, it turned into the Lord of the Flies, where these kids are straight up setting a bonfire and they're talking about killing their neighbors without any explanation of what they actually mean by that. They're like, you go kill that family, we'll go kill this family. They mean throw flour at them. How are we supposed to know that? Is that like common 1940s knowledge? I honestly thought they were going to murder people.
I know, it's like, what movie is this?
It's The Purge.
So that's why I was like, is she saying that John tried to kill her in the way that they tried to kill people? Maybe he was like going to play a prank on them too with some flour, or maybe that's just kind of a blanket term for pranks on Halloween is to murder, but that is dark.
Yeah. I mean, she's also got like a doll graveyard, and
we need to talk about Tootie.
Yeah, let's talk about the child psychopath.
Just gonna say I love her. She's fantastic.
She definitely grew on me. At first I was like, what the fuck? And then she was talking about like ghosts and death, and I was like, this child is Jen.
Straight up Jen.
Yeah.
Creepy, like, so no offense, you're not creepy and you're not Wednesday Addams, but that's how I picture you as a child. Like,
I wish. I love Wednesday Addams.
I think you just gave her the biggest compliment.
But like, were you like a death obsessed weirdo child who like skulked around?
I don't think so. I think I was a normal child who just also liked death.
But yeah, I didn't catch, you guys talked about this a couple times. When did she mention she had a graveyard for her dolls?
A couple times, didn't she? I can't remember the specifics, but
I know when they said that they were moving, she was like, now I have to go dig up all my dolls.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she did say that.
But I don't remember when she first said that she keeps her dolls in a graveyard. But at some point in one of her I'm a weirdo kid monologues, she said it.
Has weird like doll heads scattered about her room too, and she shares it with Agnes. Poor Agnes.
I think Agnes is a creep too. Like, I think they're both a little weird. Just,
I mean, she had to learn
the weirder one.
Do you think that Agnes is creepy? Because I feel like she's not as clearly creepy as Tootie. Like, Tootie doesn't hide it. She's like, I am a creep. I am a creep. I'm a creep, creep, creep. But Agnes is like, oh, I'm going to go along with whatever creep thing Tootie is doing, but she's not deep down a creep. You know what I mean?
Was Agnes the one at the beginning who was like, oh, did you kill my cat? I'll throw you down the stairs and like sever your head or whatever.
No, it's Tootie.
That was still Tootie?
I think, oh, actually, no, maybe Tootie had already gone upstairs because she was wet.
Yeah, I thought Agnes was the one with the cat.
Oh, okay. I kind of attributed it all to Tootie. Maybe that's why I'm so pro Tootie. I thought every clever, weird thing said was her, but maybe it was split between the two of them.
Honestly, yeah, I don't know if I know them apart well enough to really say that with confidence, but I assumed that was Agnes at the beginning.
I kind of assumed that Agnes was more like Rose, you know, not the main character of the duo, just kind of like, not even filler necessarily, just a less developed,
it was
real person.
I kind of liked that it was like the older sister dynamic and then the younger sister dynamic, and then of the two groups there was kind of one that was more focused on.
Yeah. And then the brother just like popping in once every 2 hours.
And then apparently there's a brother. Can we talk about, sorry, this is jumping ahead a little bit because Tootie has that song that she likes to sing about being drunk. We should just talk about the whole party scene because that was a rager.
What was that?
This was still the point of the movie where I was confused as what the plot was going to be, not realizing there wouldn't be one. And I was like, we're spending a lot of time on this party where nothing's happening. They're just dancing. Like, it's just people dancing and playing music in a nice big house. Like, I don't understand why I'm spending so much time at this party.
I don't understand anything about this party. So it was like a kid party. So the parents left?
Yeah, I think the parents were out, and Rose and Esther and the brother were like throwing a party for their friends, and then the little sisters crashed it.
What was the occasion of the party? Is it him going away to school?
Maybe.
No, I think it had an occasion, but I can't remember what it was.
And I'm just like, okay, so these kids, I couldn't tell the vibe. Is this a party where their parents are like supervising them and that's why they're being so lame?
No, I think that was them being rambunctious.
That's it. I'm like, is this the extreme version of a like young adult party in the 40s? Like, oh, my parents won't be there. I'll bring my trumpet.
You're right. It was a farewell party for Lon going off to Princeton.
Okay.
But like, that's their version of wild. Having a banjo and a trumpet.
Yeah.
And that's a bunch of hats.
Do you know, like, in, like, 90s, 2000s teen movies, whenever there was, like, a party, there was always a band playing? That's like this, but instead of it being, like, a rock band, it was, like, some girl with a trumpet.
Love it.
I guess I could kind of see it when they were dancing and they were, like, swinging each other around kind of more violently. But the song what was the song?
Well, there were two things. Because first of all, I one of my notes was that I did not anticipate a Skip to My Lou Yankee Doodle.
That was it.
Do your ears hang low mashup?
Yeah, I couldn't believe Skip to My Lou was the banger of the day that they were all singing and dancing to. It
was a mashup. It was great. And then then they did that like cakewalk song, Esther and Tootie.
Is that what they call it? That like
she's like, we'll do the cakewalk thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my question: was that song super racist?
I wrote that down where I was like, is this racist? Because it felt racist.
It really did.
It did feel racist.
But I didn't quite understand what they were talking about. So I'm like, I think they're referencing something. Like, this is maybe like a song of the day that people know, and it feels racist.
Yeah, because they're speaking with like a put-on speech pattern kind of accent. Yeah. Like, it felt really not great. It felt like there was a tinge of mocking, but it wasn't clear enough what they were mocking.
I'm gonna look this up.
But yeah, I remember I would looked at everyone's face when we were virtually watching this, and everyone had a kind of a furrowed brow, like, oh no, maybe we shouldn't be enjoying this.
I thought it was cute though. I just thought that was like a cute like moment of I don't know, kids are annoying, but I did like that they were like, perform for us, Tootie, because she's clearly an attention whore.
Yeah, they included her, which is way different than any other movie where you're like, get upstairs, you little shit.
Well, and it kind of shows Esther being a good sister again. Like they have this little routine all worked out, and
she's not embarrassed or like put upon. She's like, I'm gonna include her and I'm gonna do what she wants me to do to make her feel comfortable in this party. It's nice. Did you find anything, Jen?
Yeah, I just searched racist song to see if anything came up, and I was just reading an article that has the lyrics. The song is called Under the Bamboo Tree. I'm not going to read any of the lyrics out loud because I don't know how to do that without also sounding racist.
Smart.
But it's just about a woman who goes into the jungle and meets essentially an indigenous person who lives there, and then he is very simple but loves her.
Okay, so we were on the right track.
Yeah.
Feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, that felt bad.
Yeah. And that's why some of the, like you said, some of the speech patterns, it's written out here, and I'm like, that's why I'm not going to say that out loud.
Yeah, I had the closed captioning on again, so I could see that there was things to be pronounced incorrectly on purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So it's not like we needed confirmation that was racist. We all felt it.
Yeah.
But it's just good to know that, it was not great.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I will say for a movie from so long ago, I mean, there was subtle racism in that no Black people exist in St. Louis, but there wasn't overt racism. So I think that's a good thing.
I was going to say the same thing, that it's like, you kind of expected it to be a little more racist, but then there was literally no one who wasn't white and wealthy. So I was like, oh, there's just no room for that here.
Yeah, they don't want to like taint their like lovely image of family life with the realities of racism.
Yeah, because especially at the beginning, I wasn't quite sure what year this movie was taking place. I think I missed like the 1903 or whatever, but I could tell it was like old times and they were a wealthy family with a big house, and I was like, do they have slaves?
I mean, they Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have to think about that, but they did have the maid,
Yes.
who is a Caucasian female, but they mentioned that they pay her $12 a month, and I was so cold. I was like, oosh, that, I mean, I know that's probably a living wage, but just the concept of that and how much she works,
Yeah.
it felt a little uncomfortable. They do make a good show that she's part of the family.
Part of the family,
She's
yeah.
more of like an aunt, grandmother, sister type character.
Just paid. Also, like, I know this is stuff of the era, and this is how society worked and all these things, but why do they have a maid when none of the women work? Like, you could just, the mom could be making dinner. Like, what, why do you have
Status,
a hired
baby.
help for that? I know, that's why I'm like, I know it's of the time, and this is just what you do, but I'm just like, what? I'm too poor to think of these things. I'm like, I don't understand why you would spend money on a whole person to do the cooking when you're there. Like, what are you doing?
Well, yeah, she's cooking with her too, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you're right. It must be just the behind the scenes stuff, laundry and
Yeah.
maintaining the house, because it's quite a house, right? So they do need someone to help clean it.
A lot of children, young people running around.
Right. Although it did kind of seem like the older daughters were responsible for raising the younger daughters.
True. I noticed that too at one point where I think Tootie like runs outside and she like passes the dad on the stairway and he's like, what's going on? And then like Esther runs after her and then the dad just watches them from the window and I'm like, your youngest child ran out of the house crying in the middle of the night in December. Like, do you want to maybe make sure she has a jacket or a sweater or...
But that's like when he realized how much they loved St. Louis and they couldn't leave. That was like the inciting incident in his brain to switch.
Still dumb as fuck. But he also could have like, I don't know, been more of an active parent, I say, of this man in 1904.
It is true though. I was like, that's it. Your youngest daughter, who's proven herself to be very immature, has a tantrum, and you totally derail your life and everyone's life and decide to throw away a promotion. Like, this kid will get used to it. She'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, why are you ruining everyone's life twice over because of her?
They also said at one point, like, Tootie hadn't even started school yet. So it wasn't even that she was worried about, like, switching schools and how she's going to make new friends. Like, you'll make new friends because you'll go to school. Like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's probably the hardest on, like, Agnes and Esther, I guess. Because Rose is out, basically out of the house. Agnes is in school, and Esther, I think she said she's almost a senior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She worked her whole life to be a senior. She says that at one point.
Their ages are very hard for me to
I was
determine.
so confused.
Yeah, because
it started the movie talking about how ancient Rose is.
The thing is, that did stick with me because they're like, oh, she's running out of time. But it's Esther who says that. So as the younger, immature daughter, sure. Like, her parents are not saying...
They're just giving her a hard time.
You're a spinster. It's just like she seems so much older to her younger sister.
But it did also confuse me with their ages, because I feel like the three elder siblings are so close in age, I can't really...
They're probably like a year apart.
Yeah, determined. But then there seems to be a very large gap between, like, Esther and Agnes and Tootie. So I'm like, what happened for those, like, 10 years?
Honestly, didn't they just have like a whole mess of kids and only some survived till adulthood?
Oh yeah, that's possible.
That's possible.
Dark.
I was thinking like, you know, dad was sleeping on the couch for a few years, mom was mad, but they were just together in name only.
Ooh, equally as likely.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because there was also the scene when John proposes to Esther, and then he says something about how like we're both of legal age. So I was like, oh, is that 16? Is that 18?
Right? I don't know. But
I did see that the legal age at the time was 15, but I was trying to figure out what they meant by that.
Well, she has to be around that, right? Because if Lon Jr.'s going to university, he's like 18.
Yeah.
And then there's got to be Rose, who's 17, and then Esther's 16, which is super gross when you think about it, because they're like, let's get married. But they seem 16. He's like, it's fine. We can live with your parents. Like, it's great. I'm like, ew, dude.
Yeah, and he's
get
like,
a job.
I'll just not go to university and find a job. And like, it's very like teenagers thinking they can be grown-ups thing, where it's like, no, you need to go to university.
Yeah, I kind of like that they came to that conclusion, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as he started describing that life, Esther was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want this.
And realistically, I don't think she could have left her family. So
Yeah.
in real life, they did move to New York.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just move to New York?
Because
Rather
they
live in New York.
St. Louis.
They really did. They had a very unhealthy attachment to what looks like any random city in the world.
I did like how there was that one scene between Tootie and some guy where they
The ice wagon salesman?
Yes, where they were talking about the pronunciation of St. Louis, because we were all very perplexed by that.
Yeah, if you guys notice, my Zoom name right now is St. Louis, how they were singing it in that first song, and it confused the fuck out of me, because I was like, have I been saying St. Louis my whole life, not knowing it was St. Louis? Because, oh my god, I must look so dumb. I called it St. Louis, like, earlier today, like, everyone's gonna be making fun of me. But then they were like, no, it's pronounced St. Louis, and I was like, oh, thank god.
Yeah. I mean, I was still making fun of you.
Thank you.
5-year-old Tootie set us straight.
I really did not like that they randomly sang this song all the time. Like, no one knew a single other song. It's not a catchy song. It's not a clever song, but like, they were like, hey, get it, get it, get it. It's the title of the movie. Get it? Do you guys get it? And it
stuck
just
in my head all day today.
I hated it. And I really hate this movie trope. It happens a lot more in older movies where people sing while like going places, like while walking or by themselves and stuff. Like, no one really does that. No one just sings an entire song word for word, perfect pitch, perfect music by themselves to no one. Like, say you're a person who sings while you're doing the dishes or something and you're distracted or whatever, you're in and out, you're like...
So you mean like, because I mean that's a musical, but I think as in like in the story they are singing. It's not like...
Yeah, it's mostly like a time filler. It's like, we're going to introduce the character. So like Tootie comes in and she's singing, and then she walks up to her room while singing, and then the grandpa's singing and he walks to his room of hats while singing. And I'm just like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, no one does it. People just walk from room to room. They're not singing this Meet Me in St. Louis song over and over and over.
I believe it's pronounced Meet Me in St. Louis.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say? I guess it's only a thing that I notice. I mean, it's a musical, I get it, but it just bothers me because no one does that. Like, if you burst into song with someone and it's moving the plot forward and it makes sense and your exposition and it means something, sure, that's a musical to me. But when they're just randomly singing a song for no reason because they want to move to another room, I'm just like, you just don't do that.
And it was kind of weird use of music sometimes, because most of the songs were like performances, or they were singing for someone or singing together, like I guess you would say like in real life they were singing, but then there were a couple that sort of moved the story along, like the trolley song, and that were more like book numbers, but like that don't really fit in with, so it was just kind of a weird use of music, a little bit of everything, but most of it was just singing. It didn't bother me because I mean I wander around my house singing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Jackie in the sense of this movie, because I did find myself wondering, like, why is this a musical? Like, the songs weren't developing characters, they weren't furthering the plot. It was sort of just like, we have Judy Garland in a movie, so she's got to sing. And like, I mean, the trolley song is an example, because I was like, I don't understand the purpose of this. Like, we already know that she likes John next door and that she wants to be with him, but now they're just kind of on a trolley singing. And I was like, I mean, I know it's a musical, but I was like, why is this a musical?
Well, this is what I mean. Like, what purpose are the songs serving? Are they progressing the plot, or are they just for the purpose of showcasing new music? Because that's a lot of old style musicals kind of around this time, really. Like, Showboat, I think, came out in 1929, and that was like the first musical that was very much like, the songs are progressing from point A to point B. By the time we reach the end of the song, something in the plot has advanced. And so like that was kind of a new development. It was a lot of like, here's a bunch of like Tin Pan Alley songs, like here's some Cole Porter music, go sing it, or here's some Gershwin music, go sing it. And it's just like, we're going to showcase these songs that you can buy now. You can buy the sheet music for this, or you might hear it on the radio. And then they don't really have anything to do with the plot. So I feel like this musical is kind of in the middle of it. Most of the songs I think they get by the fact that they're just performing for each other. But yeah, there's a few that kind of sneak in as like, what? Why is this here?
I really like the trolley song. It's fun, and it's the only song I knew, sort of. But I didn't understand why they were on a trolley. And they didn't go anywhere on the trolley.
Yeah.
It's not like they went to a secondary location. It was just like, let's be on this trolley so we can sing about a trolley.
I mean, wasn't it like brand new? Weren't they all excited about the trolley because they built the trolley for the fair? And so they were like excited to get on the trolley and like experience.
I guess, but they weren't going to the fair yet.
Yeah, but
right?
I just kind of got the impression that it had like just opened. Maybe that's wrong.
I am not 100% sure. I thought at the time they were getting on the trolley to go to the fair. But then that didn't happen, and they were just on the trolley to sing about being on a trolley. I was like, I've never been this happy to be on a streetcar in my life.
I could be right. That's what my note was. Imagine being this excited about public transportation. But I think they were going to see the fairgrounds being built. I'm pretty sure they make reference to that at some point.
Okay. And I mean, objectively, the trolley is cool. It's a double-decker trolley. It seemed very dangerous to me. I'm like, this is not safe. There's like no guardrails on the top, and it looks like it was wobbling quite severely side to side. And I was like, you couldn't pay me to get on this trolley.
And the kids just walked right up to where the conductor was working and controlling it, and they started singing in his face. And I was like, give the man some space.
Yep.
Right? He must be like,
John
damn
was
kids.
running after it and hopped on. Like...
That was so funny. Could he have been more clearly running in place in front of like a moving background? He looked like he was doing the running, man. He's just like, hey, running after a trolley.
Also, it had been gone for like half a song at that point. So I'm like, where's he running from? Like, how late was he? How fast is he? I thought he was going to be in a car next to it or something and be like, beep, beep, meet you guys there. And she'd be like, oh, John is coming.
Can we just talk also one more time about how John is so underwhelming? Like, he can't be on time for anything.
I was just going to say, we know that his time management skills are terrible because that is the other major conflict of this movie.
He can't make it to the trolley on time. He's constantly disappointing her. And then he can't take her to the dance because he forgot to pick up his suit. Like, he kind of seems like a super dud. I'm sorry that he's hot for 1940s times, but like, Esther, you can have anybody. Get someone who's hot and knows how to look at a watch.
Well, he does always say that he's like late because he's just coming from basketball practice or something. So maybe she's just really into athletes. She's like, ooh, but he's got that body though. Like, I'll put up with it.
He do got that body. He also said that he plays football, so he's like an all-around athlete.
There you go.
I guess that's his one attractive quality. Those good in shorts. Thanks,
Oh
John.
my god. Now I get it. He's a dumb jock. That's why he's so useless.
God. There we go.
I guess, but like, wouldn't Esther be smart enough to maybe tie herself to a smart job?
I mean,
like, he's got to get a job eventually. She is 16, I suppose.
Yeah, I was like, she's got the brains. She doesn't need someone else to do any thinking.
Oh God, I wish that were true. She can't get the job. She needs the husband to get the job.
That's true. But I think maybe in those days, wives were doing a lot of that anyway. They were pulling all the strings. They were schmoozing. They knew everyone in town. She probably is like, I'm friends with the mayor. I'll get you a job at City Hall. Like, don't worry about it.
He's so gonna work for her father's company.
Oh, there you go.
That's what it is. He'll become like junior vice president in no time. Keep her in the style to which she's become accustomed.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. She's got a plan. You know what? Why did I underestimate Esther?
Yeah,
she knows what she's
never
about.
underestimate Esther. But yeah, so the dance, I guess, is the climax of the movie. If we go so far as to call it that.
Was the dance just like a Christmas dance that happens for all the young people in town? Like, I wasn't sure what this dance was and why it was so important.
Yeah, I think it's just like a Christmas dance for the neighborhood or for the city.
They just called it the ball. Like, it seems like a very important social event.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure, like, because they were making such a big deal. And again, maybe this is just like the social mores of the time where it's like, you can't go unless a man is taking you as like a date. So I was like, is this like a cotillion coming out type event? Or is this just a Christmas dance and they just want to go to it? And it seems like it was just a dance that they wanted to go to.
Yes.
And I don't think it was like you couldn't go if a man didn't escort you. I think it was like that would be just so embarrassing.
Right.
Like,
can you
social
even
suicide.
believe the travesty of it all?
But then they got around that by going with their brother and grandfather.
Well, what I just don't understand, and I think we all had the same reaction, was that so John's suit or John's tuxedo is at the tailor's, and he missed the opportunity to go pick it up. And so her grandfather comes in. She's all sad because now she cannot go to this dance. It's the end of the world. She just cannot go. But her grandfather comes in and like gives her a little pep talk and is like all sweet, talking about how he has a suit that needs to get dusted off and like likes to go for a little dance every now and again. It's like a really cute moment. Yeah. And then he takes her to the dance and we're all just like, what? I thought he was gonna give John his suit. What happened? Didn't that save the situation? Didn't that solve the problem?
Yeah, I'm like, hey, in my mind, I'm like, hey, Grandpa, she's not really upset about missing the dance.
Yeah.
She's upset about missing the dance with John. But then he's like, I'll take you. And it turns out, no, she just wanted to go to the dance. It doesn't matter if John's there or not.
Yeah. I think maybe it was a little bit of both, because I think they said this was like the last dance before they leave St. Louis. So I think she really wanted to go no matter what, but definitely did want to go with John, the guy next door that she's been in love with for like a year. And again, when he was like, oh, I don't have my suit. And she was like, well, what about your dad's suit? And he was like, oh, that was my dad's suit. I have nothing. And I was like, Esther, you have a father, you have a brother. Go check if one of them has a spare suit. Like, just get one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, why can't you just wear a suit instead of a tuxedo that's been to the cleaners?
Yeah, but that was the other funny part, is that he, like, says this dressed to the nines in, like, a really fancy-looking suit.
But I think it's one of those things where if he showed up wearing his everyday tweed suit, they'd all be like, gasp, clutch pearls, look at this hobo.
Can we talk about the fact that John shows up mid-dance with a tuxedo, but they never explain where that tuxedo came from?
Maybe the father, or maybe Lon was like, hey, buddy, I'll get you something. Like, his grandpa over here couldn't figure this out.
Right.
I did have that too, where this was supposed to be a conflict, which did not seem like a big deal of a conflict. And then it was resolved without any explanation of just like, here he is in the suit. And I'm like, even if he had said something to Esther when they were dancing, if he was like, I went round to like Taylor Joe's house and I woke him up and made him go back to the shop to get the suit because I had to come here and see you, something. And then that would kind of show like, oh yes, he does care. He's a good guy. But instead he was just like, I'm here.
That's why I believe Austin's version of events, where somebody else had to take him by the hand and be like, look, I got you a suit. Like, go. But yeah, I would respect him more if he had done something. Even Esther said, go wake him up and get him to open. Like, she really wanted him to prove that he wanted to do this with her. And he never did. And in the end, I don't think he didn't use this opportunity to win her. Yeah. In our view, anyway. Like, maybe he told her later what happened and how heroically he acted to get his tux, but it's just like, boom, he has a tux, problem solved, and she loves him for some reason.
They also, like, immediately after that, he has proposed to Esther, but they don't actually show the proposal or anything that he says to her. They just show Esther crying, and she's like, and he's like, oh, I didn't mean to make you cry. And she's like, oh, I always knew this would happen. I didn't think I'd cry. And I was like, did he say that he loved her? Like, some sort of emotional thing? And then he's like, oh, I've never asked someone to marry me before. And I'm like, we missed the whole proposal? You just skipped over what he said because you can't convincingly give him anything to say to be worthy of this? Like,
yeah, I made a note of that too. Like, we didn't see the proposal. I guess we see him say it a second time, but like, what?
And then we see his like sad attempts to be like, I'll drop out of school and we'll live somewhere and get some sort of job. And she's like, oh no.
Yeah. I have a question. What are dance cards?
Yeah, I've always heard that phrase of, like, fill up your dance card or whatever. Did not realize that was a literal card where you filled out the names of the men that you were going to dance with, and then you had to dance with them and only them.
You guys are so funny. This is maybe I've read too many, like, old romance novels, but, like, straight up, you have a card, and they have the order of dances, and men ask you for which particular dance you want, the waltz or the other style. The waltz is, like, the more sensuous one. You have to like save that for your one you really want to dance with and all these things, and you can't dance with men more than once or else it means something. So it's also like a record of who you dance with. It's very
is that how they did it in your day, Jackie?
Wow. No one asked me to dance. Okay, I always had an empty dance card.
Well, when Jackie gets herself to a waltzery post-pandemic, she'll be having a dance card and waltzing with some men.
Right? It's going to be a dance card. It's all waltzes, which means I'm going to be slutty. Let's get to it. Yeah, it was a straight up thing. And like, there was something about having a pen was like, if the man had a pen, it was very forward or something.
Oh my goodness.
Trying to be on all the dance cards. But yeah, it was a huge deal.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm old. I get it. I understand.
Because Esther and Rose had a whole plan. It sounded like I didn't understand what their plan was because
there was a girl from New York who was coming to the dance with Rose's boyfriend,
right?
Warren,
and so they were filling up her dance card with all these ugly guys that they didn't like as like sabotage, so that Rose could get with Warren. But then this character, I forget this woman's name. she was also like every other woman in the movie where she was just like, no nonsense, get what I want. And she was straight up like, hey, you're here with your brother, who I like. I'm here with Warren, who you like. This is stupid. Let's swap. And then Rose is like, hell yeah. And then Esther's like, I got your shitty dance card. And Rose is like, shut up, shut up, shut up.
It's so random. They didn't really explain enough about who this woman was, how Lon knew her, how Warren knew her. Like, I know they kind of talked about it during the snowman scene, but I didn't catch it.
I think she goes to school out east with one of them, but I think we said that the brother is at Princeton, and then Warren, I think, was at Yale, so I'm not sure. Like, I think she's just an Ivy League girl that they know.
Maybe they all grew up in St. Louis? I don't know.
Maybe, but I didn't get that vibe, because I thought Esther and Rose didn't know her, so I thought she was, like, from New York, and just liked Lon, and then was using Warren as a chance to get back there and get to this dance.
That makes sense.
But then, yeah, I was
as much as it can.
Yeah, I don't know why Lon didn't ask her. Like, didn't he like her too? And, like, why did Warren take her? Because he didn't take Rose, but he could have just taken Rose? Like,
it's very complicated.
She is cool, though, right? Like, she definitely also is an Esther type.
Yeah.
She steps up, plain speech, just tells everybody what she wants and makes it happen for herself. I don't know who she is, but, like, she's my second favorite character.
Right. Yeah. I really like the women in this movie, honestly. Like, even the mother and, like, Katie, the maid, like, they kind of don't take shit from anyone in the movie. Like, yeah, there's still the wife and, you know, homemaker roles, I guess. But, like, you know, the father leads the household. But, I mean, like, even the mother, she still kind of calls him on his bullshit.
Yeah, and they totally have separate, independent lives.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to look at it. It's not how they're usually represented in these types of movies.
Yeah, and like even Rose, like she's kind of, like you said earlier, like it's kind of Esther that's more invested in Rose's proposal and all this, and she's kind of just like, it's fine, like I'll just go find someone else.
Yeah. Oh my god, Rose's ultimate proposal was the funniest thing.
Yes. Did you write down what he said? I forget what exactly he said, but it was so funny.
He said, his name's Warren Sheffield. He says, Rose Smith, we can't go on like this any longer. I've positively decided we're going to get married at the earliest opportunity, and I don't want to hear any arguments. That's final. I love you. Merry Christmas. And then he leaves.
I loved that because A, it was hilarious, but also, like, it's the middle of the night on Christmas Eve, and he just barges into their house. Pure coincidence that they're all awake because the dad just shouted for everyone to come downstairs.
That's true.
Like, was he gonna go marching up the stairs, wake Rose up? Like, what was his plan? I love it. Do you know which bedroom it was? Like,
where did he come from? Where was he staying? Why is he still dressed? What precipitated this outpouring of emotion? Like, this guy's a weirdo.
Questions. So many questions. I love how the father is just like, who was that? I'm so happy for you, but who was that?
Straight up, he was like, everyone was so happy for her, except the dad was like, what? Like, what did I miss here? Everyone else knew.
Yeah, he was like, I hope to get to know him one day.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So are we assuming that Warren and Rose's relationship started after he left to go to university? Like, how did they know each other?
I think they knew each other in St. Louis, but maybe, like, things hadn't really progressed very well by the time he moved. So that's why they were like, oh, he's calling. Maybe it's going to be to propose. And then finally you guys can get to that level. Because I'm not sure people really date in this era. I think you sort of like each other, walk side by side and not touching once maybe, and then get engaged.
Well, yeah, because you can't kiss until you're engaged, right? That they make a point of that.
That's what Rose said. And Esther was like, fuck you.
Esther got it. Good girl. She made out with him. Although, man, 1940s movie kisses are just violent as hell. They just smash their faces into each other real hard. I'm like, why did anyone want this? If this is how I saw people kiss, I'd be like, I think I'm good.
Have you ever seen like a really bad movie kiss?
I feel like all of these movies from this era where they just move their face around with really tight, closed mouths. That's a really awkward thing to watch.
You know what else was an awkward thing to watch in this movie? The corset scene.
Yeah. Ouch. But I will say, Esther in the red dress is like, whoo.
Yeah.
She is wearing that dress. Like, that's my favorite. I mean, obviously their outfits are a little hit or miss because they're 80% frill and they're gigantic. Like, they're huge and massive. It's such a weird style choice. I speak for the entire 1940s or 1903s, whatever, but like huge ass sleeves, huge ass skirts, tiny waist.
Yeah.
It's like they're these monstrosities that don't make any sense. Like, why would you want to accentuate your giant ass shoulders and then have a tiny waist? It's so weird to just look at it from a distance because it doesn't make any proportional sense.
There were some fantastic hats.
Yes.
They were all about hats.
Let's bring hats back. Big swoopy hat with like ribbons and bows. Can't see shit.
They just look ridiculous. And also, whenever I think of their outfits and the hats, I'm just imagining how hard any kind of movement would be. Like, anytime you wanted to turn, you'd have to be like,
turn your whole body.
So slow to be like, am I knocking over everything? Are people in the way? Are small children hidden under my dress?
But I think it's like a society wealth thing. You're not supposed to move. Like, you're a rich lady. You just sit around on your porch sipping tea looking fancy.
What else do we have to talk about? Did you guys know that this is what Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas is from?
Oh.
Yeah, it was written. I don't think it was written for this, but it was written like just before it. What I was saying before about how it was like a showcase, the songs that just kind of came out, it was that sort of situation. So let's introduce that song.
That's
a hella depressing song, man.
And it apparently was worse because apparently the original lyrics were something like "Have yourself a merry little Christmas. It may be your last."
Wow.
and Judy Garland apparently was like, "I'm not singing that. I'm singing to a child."
I was gonna say, in the scene, it's to the little sister. So she's like, "This is gonna be your last Christmas, little girl."
Yeah.
No wonder she's crying her eyes out during this entire scene.
That's so funny.
She's too real, older sister. This is too much.
Yeah, so I like how Judy Garland's like, "Yeah, no," and so they like changed the lyrics to.
The funniest part of that whole scene is that Agnes is asleep for the whole conversation and song and tantrum. And she's just like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Go back to sleep, Agnes. You're dreaming."
Like, they literally just had like a song, a fight, all this stuff. Agnes just like, was she faking sleeping because she didn't want to get involved? Because that would be me as a kid.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that would be me too. I'd be listening and kind of cataloging everything, but trying to pretend like I was asleep.
Yeah, and then once it's all resolved and done with, that's when you're like, "Oh, did I miss something? I'm just so tired."
Ooh, my eyes are so tired.
Yeah. Do you think she was just like, "Ugh, is Esther singing again?"
Yeah.
Probably. And he's like, is Tootie hogging all the attention and having like a big mental breakdown again? Like, when is it my turn?
Yeah, she's like, "I'm gonna write such shit about them in my book one day."
Right.
I have a question for Austin. So we noticed when we were watching this at the beginning of the movie. Oh, sorry, Jackie, you can answer too if you know.
Thank you.
But we did notice that this was by Vincent Minnelli, which I recognize the name as Liza Minnelli's father and assumingly Judy Garland's husband. So, like, what's the story? Did they meet on this? Were they already a couple? Like, what?
They met on this, and by the time they were done shooting and he went into, like, editing it, they were already at least living together. I think they announced their engagement at the premiere of the movie.
Must make good publicity.
Right?
How old is this dude?
Well, that's always the question.
I know. How close to the line of statutory are we tripping?
Well, you said she was 21?
21 or 22, yeah, by the time. Probably 22 by the time.
Let's take a bet. I'm going to say he's 43.
I'm going to give him a 38.
He was 40.
What did you say?
I said 43.
Ooh, I was closer with the 38. Suck on that. Boom.
So, I mean, 20-year age difference.
Really bad. Yeah, that's really bad.
Not fantastic.
He was definitely a power position man with a young up-and-coming actress. Now, I do have a question for Austin, too. Educate me a little if you can or / want to. Like, did Judy Garland have a terrible life? Like, was she a tragic figure? I don't know anything about Judy Garland.
Very much so, yeah. She started working for MGM, I think when she was a kid. I think she was 13 when she signed with MGM, and basically immediately, well, actually, even before that, because she worked in vaudeville. Her mom forced her and her two sisters to do, they were the Gum sisters. Her real name is Frances Ethel Gum. And so they did vaudeville for like 10 years, and her mom basically put her on sleeping pills at night and then like barbiturates during the day. And then, so she was like hooked as a child essentially, and then signed with MGM, I think when she was 13, and was basically, abused right through there. She always struggled with her weight. So it was basically, I think I heard I was watching some documentaries today and they were describing it as like, they treated her like a clock, basically, like just drug her according to what you need her to do. Like if you need her to rest, give her a sleeping pill. If you need her to be awake, give her this. If she needs to lose weight, give her that. So she was just like basically always drugged. So she was dependent on drugs her whole life and just like overworked. She, by this point, she had already become very like kind of been a bit of a burden on the set, in the sense that she would be late, she wouldn't show up to film, she was a bit of a problem, and that kind of continued throughout her life. And then she married Vincent Minnelli. They had Liza. It's really nice. I've watched a bunch of interviews with her. I'm not a huge Liza Minnelli fan. Like, I don't know her work that well, but like hearing her talk
her
about
best as Lucille 2 from Arrested Development.
Me too!
Yes.
Yes.
But hearing her talk about Judy Garland is just so nice. And so everything that I've got the sense of is that she was a good mother, but just very sick and didn't want to admit that she was sick. And I think she was married 5 times. Just was always like kind of a victim of the studio system.
I'm assuming Vincent Minnelli was her first husband?
Second.
Wow, at 22.
Yeah.
Rough.
And we can cut this, but apparently her first husband, she got pregnant. I think she was like 19 or 20. And the studio system was like, no, you're a baby. And then made her get an abortion.
I have heard that, actually.
Whoa. Yeah. Holy shit. How did she end up dying?
Drug overdose.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No one's sure if it was actually a suicide attempt or if she just kind of let her guard down, because she was so dependent on these drugs anyway that...
Yeah, I was going to say, it's almost like she never had a real chance because she was being forced onto drugs at such a young age. Like, you knew it was not going to end well.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about, like, Judy Garland specifically, but, like, a bit of old Hollywood, like, stuff that I've dipped into, it's a lot like this. A lot of drug use. Like, child actors were given stuff so that they wouldn't grow and things like that, so they would stay small, and, like, diet pills, and just studios, like, controlling every aspect of your life, like...
Yeah, they basically
if you're gonna have kids and who you're gonna marry if you're allowed to and all this stuff. Like, it was just a very, very sketchy system, and so many people were really fucked over by it.
It's so sad to me. She was, I think, fired by MGM finally in 1950, in the early 50s, I think, just because she had become too much of a liability, too much of a hassle, I guess, to deal with. Because, you know, why get her help when you could just fire her?
Replace her with someone younger.
Yeah, much. And so she was fired from a bunch of movies and kind of tried to make some revival or some comebacks to varying levels of success, but she's always been beloved. She died at 47, and if you see pictures of her, she looked like she was in her 60s.
Rough living.
Yeah.
I knew, I just knew that she was like something bad. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about her life. It's really depressing, but yeah, you got to wonder how many of these stories exist and were buried, or not intentionally buried, have just not come out. Yeah. But you're right. Like, it sounds like exactly how the studio system worked back then. There was such a monopoly and they just could do whatever they wanted. And there was always new faces. And I mean, it hasn't really changed that much, has it?
Yeah, in some ways, and others.
Depressing.
Okay.
But yeah.
Great.
So, it's just so sad to think, though, like, she was 22 or 21, 22, whatever, and, like, had already lived so much life at this point, Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, she said that this is the first time she's ever felt sober and happy and pretty on a set. Like, what did you go through before this?
Yeah.
When you were a baby?
The actress that played the mother, I was reading some quotes from her, and she was talking about how she got into it a few times with Judy Garland because she would, like, just be hiding in her dressing room, and I guess the mother came in and was like, what are you doing? Like, you're holding us all up. This is selfish. And, like, it sounds like she tried to kind of reach out to her, and she was like, I don't sleep or something. And she just kind of brushed it off as like, well, then go to bed earlier. And then she was like, it took me a long time to realize that that's not what she was saying.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
That's a bummer.
Right.
She had no one to help her. Okay, that was awful.
Sorry for that real depressing.
No, I totally asked. I wanted to know, and it's important to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, it's good to know, because that's a lot of context too, that, like, we're talking about how great her character is, how she's so, like, charming and effervescent on screen, and then that was coming at the expense of her life, in a sense.
Yeah. But I think, she tried her best. She did the best she could, tried to stay positive and tried to, put a good spin on things. But like, who could she have asked for help, really,
Yeah.
And
well, that's the thing. When you're the product, like,
yeah.
Hi, Brittany.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, this sounds like we're talking about the Free Britney stuff.
Yeah, you could lift any name and, put any name in there at this point.
Yeah. When you're the product, when you're responsible for people's livelihoods, they're never going to prioritize your health.
Yeah.
It's awful. Honestly, I'm not sure if there's anything else to really go over.
Yeah.
We covered the characters. We covered major beats in the story.
But terrible conflicts of tuxedos.
Seriously. Absolutely heart-wrenching devastation in this story.
Yes, I was going to say the terrible conflicts of missing tuxedos and early dinners.
Yeah, and maybe having to move, but not having to move. Contemplating the concept of leaving your home. How dare you?
Also, I know we moved on from this really fast, but when Austin, you said you felt called out by the early dinner, I did mean to make fun of you for eating so early.
I'm on Austin's side. I eat dinner the second I get home from work. I'm like, I am hungry. If it's like close to 6:30, I'm like, whoa.
I know.
Whoa. Now.
I start panicking if it's like 6 o'clock and I haven't started cooking yet. I'm like, oh my god, it's not gonna be eating until like 7. It's the end of the world.
I normally start making dinner maybe around 7.
Oh, I can't do it.
Welcome to the After Credits Cast promo.
Promo on our own show?
No. The I Hate Your Taste in Movies podcast has graciously agreed to cross-promote with us.
Ooh, cool. Okay, so then what do we say?
Oh, shit, I didn't think about that far ahead. If you like two idiots making jokes and doing bad improv wrapped around a movie review, come check us out. The After Credits Cast, every Friday, or early access and bonus content on our Patreon page. And that's it.
That's it? That's all you got? Why don't we tell them about the newest episodes for Godzilla vs. King Kong, where the podcast has been taken over by Monarch?
I'll write that down. I mean, if we can take it from the top.
How long is this promo supposed to go for?
They told me 30 seconds to a minute. Why?
Do you think we have time to run it again?
Maybe. Do you still have that weird time magic you got?
Fine.
Cagliostro!
Come check out the After Credits Cast every Friday. Listen to Ryan and me talk about movies, make bad jokes, and do even worse improv. This month, Marcus take us over, and we need your help us out. Go to patreon.com/cast to support us and or listen on your platform of choice. So, how was that?
Good. But can we do it backwards? Better, but it's missing something.
Look. Just tell them to click the links down below, subscribe if they can, donate to the Patreon, and you know what? We'll see you after the credits.
Should we do some high points and low points?
Yes.
I feel like Jackie's prepared since she writes these things down.
I am prepared. Thank you, Austin. I love praise. It's what I live for. For high point, I said, that kid's macabre streak. I clearly mean Tootie, but I forgot her name when I wrote that down, and I called her Tootsie in my head the whole time. Her name is Tootie.
A couple of times when we were talking about her, I had to stop before I said Tootie, because I was like, is it Tootie or Tootsie?
Right? But I really liked how weird she was. And she was a little bit, stereotypically tomboyish, which I really enjoy. I was that kind of kid. And whenever she said anything, it was definitely weird and unexpected and just not what I expected from a movie like this specifically. Mm-hmm. It was very out of left field and I very much liked it. She was a little annoying. I mean, that goes hand in hand with like a precocious child like that. But I enjoyed her overall, and I liked her weird, dark streak. So that's that. My low point, I wrote 2 things down. I wrote Cardboard John, because, again, he was basically nothing. And it would have been kind of cool to have someone be a foil for Esther. Maybe not be so overpowered by her, maybe challenge her or, cause her to grow, but we didn't get that. That's not so bad. I mean, Esther doesn't really need that much improvement, but it was a little bit boring. And then the other thing that I had, this is just, no one's going to like this. It's personal preference. I just really hate when they sing at the camera for long stretches of time. When it's just zoomed in on their face and they're just singing, most of the time with a very blank face. Like the expression is coming through their voice or something. And they're just like, it's like a zoom in on someone staring back at the camera for literal minutes. I'm like, what am I getting out of this? Nothing. And I guess it's because I don't appreciate the music in the right way or how it's advancing, whatever. But I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like looking at this. And my eyes tended to just start drifting away from the screen. And then I would be like looking at my phone, and it's
a little dated, honestly.
Yeah, I just didn't enjoy some of that. And I found that it happened right at points when I was starting to get interested again, and it would just kind of slow the whole thing down. And it spun me around a bit, but it's pretty hard to find a low point, I'll say. There wasn't one that struck me right away. So that's good.
I think my high point, I would say, is just Esther. Like, I thought she was a great character. She was really fun to watch. She was really entertaining. I think Judy Garland did a great job. I think she's also, despite Jackie's hatred of her eyebrows, a very beautiful person. Lovely face. Very, like, I don't even know. She's, like, mature looking, but not in an old way. Just in sort of, like, kind of like that classic beauty, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed Judy Garland. I enjoyed Esther. That would be my high points. My low points is, I'm sorry, the fact that it was a musical. Because like Jackie was saying, all of the songs I felt didn't really serve a purpose, and they kind of took me out. There wasn't a whole lot of like momentum in the movie anyway, but it still was sort of like, we're grinding to a halt because someone has to sing for some reason. And I was like, they could just cut this. And then it wouldn't be a musical and we wouldn't be watching it. But for my own enjoyment, they could just cut this. Oh, also, side note, my other high point is the weird 20-minute tangent of, like, Lord of the Flies Children Halloween.
So weird.
strange.
It took us all a solid 2 minutes to figure out that they weren't actually killing people.
They were in these creepy-ass masks. They had a bonfire, unsupervised children around, like, a bonfire in the street, and they were like, we're gonna go murder our neighbors.
I did like that the one neighbor, like, pretended to be all angry and then was just like... It was cute.
Yeah, because, like, the adults kind of knew it was coming, but then, like, it was just very strange, but it was kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my high point was Esther as well. I mean, it's not... I just loved her little comedic moments. I think Judy Garland is... I mean, it's not a hot take. It's kind of one of those Sandra Bullock's a good actress kind of hot takes to be like, hey, Judy Garland's like really funny and like she's got really good delivery. Judy Garland, she's cool. But I just liked her comedic timing, really, those little moments, specifically in that, like, we mentioned it before, but the turning off all the lights. I think that whole scene may have been my high point because it was just so, like, what kind of foreplay is this? It was just like, just kiss already. Just turn off each light individually and be sexy about it.
I did appreciate that she had the forethought to like lure him back into her house to be like, oh, I need help with this.
Yeah.
I was like,
she also stole
girl.
his hat earlier. Like she was planning. She was like, gotta
like,
have some alone
behind
time with him.
Wait a second, what was that? Why did she hide his hat in the bread box? Was she trying to get him to stay back, or was she trying to?
I think she was trying to get him to stay back and like get a few seconds.
Because then everyone.
Sorry, I thought she was stealing his hat as like a weird, creepy token because she put it in a bread box. Why would you do that?
He wouldn't know where it was.
Yeah, I think she was just hiding it so then everyone would get their stuff and leave, and he would be like, where's my hat? I guess I'm the last one here. And she'd be like, oh, that's so weird. Maybe it's in my bed. Let's go check.
Yeah. See, I appreciate her even more now. I didn't think my regard for her could go higher, but it has. I'm like, nice girl. You play him like a fiddle.
No, she knows what she wants. She's got plans. I love her.
Respect.
I think my low point was the random Lord of the Flies scene. Honestly, didn't love it. Those costumes were horrifying.
They really were
horrifying. But it was just a left turn. Didn't love it. But that's really it. Like, it's not even really a low point per se. It was just probably my least favorite part.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you have any quotes for us?
I do. Okay, so during the movie, I tried to write them down, and I failed completely. So I have like summaries of the quotes. I wrote, talk about the cat quote and the stab quote. So someone, I think Katie says, I took that cat and throw it down the stairs and broke its hip or something. And Agnes is like, if you did that, I would stab you to death. Like, they went so dark. And that was like one of the first things anyone said. And then one of John Truitt's memorable lines was, that Welsh rabbit was ginger peachy.
I think we all laughed at that one.
John Trude also says, "You got a mighty strong grip for a girl." And she goes, "Thanks, neighbor." Like, with perfect delivery, perfect comedic timing. That was the thing where I was like, oh, okay, Esther is cool. Yeah. Like, up until this point, she's just kind of machinations and whatever. But now I'm like, oh, she's also sassy and funny. I like her. I like the line, "Time, tide, and trolley wait for no man," when they're all getting on the trolley. I don't know who said this. I wish I had written down who said this. But someone goes, "What's the matter?" And the other person goes, "Nothing. I just wish I were dead. That's all."
Yeah.
I think Esther says that at one point.
I think it might be when she gets like ditched for the dance or something.
Yeah.
And that's that for the quotes I've written down. I did look up some on the internet because I know I missed some good dialogue. So let me just scroll quickly through this. We already said about Warren's real classic proposal.
So great. Iconic. Maybe the best movie proposal ever.
Right? I really like the way he just yells it.
And then just leaves.
Merry Christmas.
Apparently this line happened in the background of when they're all opening Christmas presents. But Agnes goes, "Rose, what did you get me for Christmas?" And Rose goes, "You'll find out tomorrow." And then Agnes says, "I hope it's a hunting knife." Think I'm just going to leave it at that. There's probably a lot of better quotes, and if maybe you guys have any you want to share, but it was pretty good. Like, the quotes were reasonable, and there was a lot of standout one-liners that were pretty solidly funny and hold up. So
yeah,
overall, I give them a A+ on quotes.
I need to start giving older movies more credit, because I think for whatever reason I'm like, they're gonna just be boring and bland, but like, we've watched a few, and I mean, I've obviously seen other old movies, and it's like they always surprise me by how funny they are, and like how current a lot of it is. And it's like, I need to like get rid of that weird bias that I have.
And I think, like, I don't know if this is true or not, this is just me making up facts, but I think, like, there was just a lot more emphasis on writing back then, like, about, like, the dialogue and stuff like that, whereas now we just worry about, like, action scenes, and it's more plot-driven, Jackie World, versus, like, you know, well-written. Dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay, that was pretty harsh on my movies. But
no offense, I love a lot of your movies.
I do have to say one quick thing. We don't have to talk about it. My other high point that I forgot to mention, Anna's white dress at the end. Girl.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
I was in love with that. Everyone else looks like garbage. And then Anna, the maternal mama, walks out like a bombshell.
Yeah. She was cool. Like, fuck all you guys.
And she's like, my daughters are not as hot as me. Sorry.
Yeah. The other high point is the very end of the movie where they just like, can you believe this is in our hometown, right where we live?
Yeah, that's a quote. Someone's like, wasn't I lucky to be born in my favorite city? And I'm like, you've never gone anywhere. You have never left St. Louis.
Yes.
This is how we're going to talk about Toronto once we're allowed to go outside again. We're going to be like, can you believe how lucky I am? I'm on a streetcar.
Ding, ding, ding goes the streetcar.
I mean, like the 501 if someone's like spitting on the ground.
So the budget for Meet Me in St. Louis was $1.8 million, and the box office was about $6.5 million. And then for some trivia, it grossed more money than any prior MGM release in 20 years, with the exception of Gone with the Wind.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. So apparently, Margaret O'Brien played Tootie, and she was, sounds like there was some drama that her mother thought that she deserved to be paid more, and so MGM was holding out, and then Margaret O'Brien's mother was holding out, and so it was kind of this stalemate. So MGM was like, fine, we're going to cast someone else, and they just cast some like random kid from like, that was like the daughter of someone who worked somewhere on the lot. And so they like hired this girl, put her in fittings and everything, and then Margaret O'Brien's basically playing chicken with Margaret O'Brien's mother, I guess. But she ended up winning out. She got paid more. And then apparently this other random little girl's father tried to kill Margaret O'Brien by dropping a light on her at some point. She was okay. It missed.
Whoa.
I don't think he intended to kill her, but could have.
So was he like intending to injure her so that his daughter could take the role back?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. It says that he intentionally dropped a heavy lighting instrument from the catwalk to the soundstage floor, which narrowly missed her. He
was trying to get her out.
He was taken away and briefly admitted to a mental institution.
Wow. So is this like one of those cursed movies where lots of shit went wrong?
I mean, I don't think so, but that is pretty dramatic. Okay, so the book on which the film is based was originally a weekly feature in the New Yorker. So in the movie, they're going to the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition, but it was also the same year of the Summer Olympic Games, the third Summer Olympic Games. They're also being held in St. Louis. And apparently they were a disaster that almost ruined the games. Like it almost like ruined the Olympics in general, because the Olympics were more of a side attraction to the fair. And so they didn't really have any prominence, I guess.
I, in classic Jen fashion, only did research on the 1904 World Fair because I was like, well, this is what's interesting to me in this movie. But anyway, one of the things was that the Olympics were actually awarded to Chicago and they were supposed to be held there. And then St. Louis was pissed because that was going to take attention away from their fair. So then they said they were going to hold a rival sporting event during the World Fair. So then the Olympics had to move it to St. Louis, or else they would have lost attention in Chicago.
Nice.
Love petty shit like that.
Yeah.
Way to go.
So this is, I think you mentioned, considered a Christmas movie. A lot of people watch it on Christmas Eve, and if you start the movie at exactly 10:22 and 30 seconds p.m., the church bell that tolls midnight will happen right at midnight, so you can ring in Christmas with the Smith family. So yeah, Judy Garland missed 13 days of work, which caused the production to take 70 days to complete over the original budgeted 58 days. Margaret O'Brien was awarded a special Oscar for Best Child Actor. The Trolley Song was ranked number 26, and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas was ranked number 72 by AFI on their 100 Greatest Songs in American Films. Oh, the 1904 Louisiana Purchase Exposition has been claimed by some to be the birthplace of the ice cream cone.
It was the waffle ice cream cone, but they think it was actually just popularized there, not invented there.
All right.
Sorry, I genuinely did research on the World Fair because that was.
Is there
all
anything you'd like to share? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm sorry. Oh, the X-ray. This was the first public showing of X-rays. Was at the World Fair in 1904.
Damn.
They all got cancer.
Thanks, Jackie.
It was really bad x-rays. It was a way higher dose than it should have been.
Yeah.
Everyone got cancer.
Oops.
Woohoo.
That's pretty much all I have for trivia. I'm sorry for monologuing about Judy Garland again. Hopefully I wasn't too incorrect.
No, it was good. Yeah, so this movie came out in 1944, which is not a year that I think any of us know a lot of films from. But Meet Me in St. Louis was number 2 at the box office. Number 1 was something called Going My Way, which was a musical with Bing Crosby. Austin, any knowledge of this?
I mean, I have knowledge of Bing Crosby.
Yeah, that was also the big Oscar movie that year. Going My Way, sorry. And then some of the other movies that came out, I'm just going to read some titles. Tell me what you guys have heard of. Cover Girl.
Nope.
Meet the People.
Nope.
30 Seconds Over Tokyo.
Nope.
Nope.
When Strangers Marry.
Nope.
Nope.
Crime by Night.
No.
And then this one I have heard of. Gaslight, the movie that gave us the term gaslighting.
Yep. Haven't seen it, but I have heard of it.
I had a hard time with ratings because it's really hard to put a movie on a scale when you enjoy it, but it doesn't blow your socks off. It was good. I enjoyed it. I definitely did not have any negative feelings for this movie, but I wasn't enthralled and in love with it. So I gave it an 8 in terms of enjoyment. I enjoyed it. It was harmless, good-natured fun, a couple really silly parts, some good dialogue. Overall, I enjoyed it. And I usually do enjoy older movies, but it's a crapshoot, right? If there's no explosions, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. So I enjoyed this one. 8 out of 10. And for quality, I gave it a 9 out of 10 because I just liked looking at it. I liked looking at this world, and it was really well put together. And Jen used the perfect word. It was lush.
Yeah.
It felt, you felt the seasons, you felt the house, it felt warm. The clothes were fun to look at and try and understand. So I guess the set design, all that was great. I really enjoyed it. The only problem I had was some minor cinematography issues, but really, really nice to look at. I liked it a lot.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same level as Jackie, I guess, where like it was an enjoyable movie to watch, but it wasn't really mind-blowing. I can't say I really loved it. It was kind of just like, yeah, that was all right. So I'll give it like a 6. Like it was good. It was fine. It was a good 2 hours. No real issues. And then quality, I think I'll say like an 8. Like you said, it was just really, really well done. Really good sets, really good costumes, good acting. No real complaints there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a hard marker, Jen, so.
That's true. She's very stingy.
Very stingy. Yeah, for me, I think for enjoyment, I think I'm with you there, Jackie. I think I have the same ratings in general. I think for well, maybe I'll swap them. I think I'm going to give this a 9 for enjoyment. I just had a really good time watching it. It was a lot wittier than I expected. It was very charming. I like that the characters they weren't just swooning over men, although like there was that element, but it was more like cute crush and like, I don't know. It was more focused on the women, and like I liked that element of it, and I liked that the younger sisters were just weird as fuck, and they just really leaned into that, and I loved it. And then for quality, yeah, I about the same. I think I'm gonna give it an 8. Very watchable, beautiful to look at. Yeah, some moments that went on a little longer than I maybe would have chosen, but no real complaints. Really fun to watch. Good job,
Nice.
Meet Me in St. Louis. Good job, Vincent Minnelli.
Solid choice, Austin, with your blind
Thank
spot.
you.
Like,
Yeah.
it turned out real well.
Thank you.
So far, our blind spots have been Jen sucks. Mine was incredible, and Austin's was pretty close. Sorry, Jen.
But the thing is that we've been on the same page for all of these blind spot
Yeah,
movies.
that's true.
Wow, it's bringing us together, you guys.
Yeah, we're not fighting. We don't even really need the friendometer. Like,
I mean, I just
Agreed.
said Jen sucks like real hard, but yeah, we're best friends.
oh right, friendometer is at 0. I hate Jackie.
Great. Okay. Well, mine's super green because I actually really enjoyed the watching it together part, and then like experiencing it for the first time together. It's a fun way to do it.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think it's
Super
good
great.
that we're doing it for these ones, because if we had done it for stuff that we actually care about, like if Jackie was trying to make sarcastic comments, we'd be like, shut up, watch the movie. You're gonna miss this
Yeah.
amazing part.
So what are we watching next week? This is the scary part, because Jen gets another crack at this.
Okay. All right, guys. So I
Oh,
hope
God.
you are ready to hate me. So there is a horror subgenre that's kind of a blind spot for me. It is called, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, giallo films. It's like an Italian... See, this is why Jackie's going to hate me, because she was making fun of me being like, it's going to be some niche European thing. And it is. It's like a it's an Italian like subgenre in like the 70s and 80s. And a lot of prominent directors came from it, like Dario Argento and Mario Bava, and I'm not super familiar with them. So we are going to be watching A Bay of Blood.
Oh my God. Everything you just said is the least thing on earth I want to experience. All of this is
This friendship
niche
is just going down the
European
drain.
horror movies from the 70s. I hate this. I'm
It's a
so
really-
mad.
It's a really popular subgenre that I'm not familiar with, so I want to learn. I want to see. And A Bay of Blood is supposed to be one of the best, so we're gonna dive right in.
We just spent 5 minutes talking about how these past 3 weeks have been so lovely. We've been on the same page.
Thanks.
It's been so
Yeah.
fun.
Jen
Here
decides to
to
just
ruin
destroy
it.
it. Cool. All the nice feelings I had, gone.
All right, so that wraps up Meet Me in St. Louis. Next week, Jen ruins everything. We've had a good thing going. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste, or on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website. It is IHateYourTasteInMovies.wordpress.com, and there are links there to our merch. We just opened a new shop on Redbubble. We got some cool stuff up there. Also, if you like what we're doing, you can leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. We also have set up a page on Buy Me a Coffee, which is a website where you can just, if you want to support us, you can do so on there. That is buymeacoffee.com/IHateYourTaste. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.